Alright, last one for the night. Here's the list I'm testing. See, there's 3 Noxious Revival that I'm running main. That's a big difference between mine and a lot of other people's. I'm running 1 Spellbomb, 1 Ether Grid. Only running 5 discard main. I'm running 1 Swamp, 1 Forest for my basics. And my discard's a little different. I run 3 Droplets, 1 Spellbomb, and Sunbeam Spellbomb, and 1 Pithing Needle. Instead of that 4 Sun Droplet. Alright, so I win 1 Searchable instead of 2, I guess. So, last match of the night. And as usual, this is usually the hardest matchup. Oh my gosh. Some people think that Burn is the hardest matchup. I think it's Jund. So, of course I don't know what my opponent's playing, but I see that Cliffs and a Duress and a Needle and a Bridge, and I'm like, wow, if I just draw land, which if all else fails, that Spellbomb will draw me into, then I should be okay. And I saw that Ravine, and I was like, well, I know what this is. There's only one real good deck that plays Ravines, and that's Jund. And I thought, I Duress, and sure enough, I see it's Jund. Yeah, I take out the Ooze because it doesn't matter if my opponent plays Liliana. And I go ahead and I put a land back on, I'm going to Bloodstained Myra back on top so that I can at least somewhat control what my opponent draws. So I can just discard it, like the Spellbomb, and then Needle Liliana and be okay. But I'm still drawing no land, unfortunately. And there's a Kolaghan's Command, and that's pretty, there's no coming back from that. So, it's just unfortunate. 1 land hand, risky keep, and I paid for it. And it's already a hard matchup, so. Yeah. This one, again, it's 1 land hand, but now I got Opal, and it doesn't look so bad. And I see all that. That's rough. Because I have more discard, I'm not worried about the Abrupt Decay quite yet. So I take out the Inquisition. I'm not worried about the Decay because I have Duress, and I'm not worried about Dark Confidant yet because I have Spellbomb. So now I take out the Decay. TGO is starting to be slow, so I name Liliana on that. That's one of the few cards that the opponent can have that will really hurt or disrupt the board state. There's that bridge I needed. So now it's just a race to who has the fewest dead draws. I'll go ahead and play out that Spellskite. I know my opponent has a Terminate, but the sooner I get that Spellskite out to try to protect Bridge, then it makes it so my opponent has to worry about Spellskite before they can take care of Bridge. Yeah, wait until my opponent's in step to get back the Spellskite if I need to. What's funny here is I totally forget that I even had Needle naming Liliana. And so I can get back the spell bomb, so I can start destroying a Liliana that already has Needle on it. So, kind of silly, but you know. I kept wondering, like, wow, why isn't my opponent using Liliana? And it's because I'm kind of dumb. And really, like, in hindsight, I should have go ahead and popped out that Liliana with the spell bomb. Yeah, I don't know why my opponent turned on the Ravine, but whatever. I wanted to see what my opponent drew here, so and I figured I'd go ahead and get rid of some of the targets my opponent might have, or some of the relevant cards my opponent has. So I see 3 commands, 2 more Lilianas. Yeah, go ahead and take out that Confidant. Sure enough, my opponent draws that. And for some reason, I don't know why I didn't do Noxus Revival here. That would have been really useful, because then I could have gotten back the Needle, and, or not the Needle, I could have gotten back Spell Bomb and destroyed Liliana. So my opponent just, at this point, just has to start ticking up Liliana to try to ultimate to get rid of my bridge. So I did do a misplay with that Noxus Revival. I discarded it to Kolaghan's Command instead of actually playing it. Go ahead and play out that second bridge. So that's one more thing my opponent has to stack up. So I know my opponent is playing 3 Kolaghan's Commands. And they've already used one of them, so that means my opponent has to draw both Kolaghan's Commands before I draw a Welding Jar or Bridge. And my opponent still has to try to ultimate Liliana before I draw a Needle. Unfortunately, my opponent's Scavenging Ooze shuts down my Noxus Revivals. I don't know why MTGO is being slow now. Come on now, man. Yep. I'll go ahead and try to play it, just in case, and force my opponent to use Scavenging Ooze. So my opponent's Liliana is at 6, and I figure if my opponent ultimates next turn, then I'll have a land drop for my bridge to go with my bridges. So my opponent makes us discard instead, which I kind of expected, but... Now something to note here, it looks like my opponent misplayed too, because they discarded that Kolaghan's Command to their Liliana. It looks, I'm guessing that's what happened. I don't know how else that command got in my graveyard. I don't know that it could have done a whole lot of effect anyways, but it would have taken out a bridge. Yeah, this was a tough decision for my opponent. And of course, you know what pile I'm going to take. One mana, and I could have played that Abrupt Decay there, but nope. So I sighted in that fourth needle here. So I was like, well, all I gotta do is draw a needle and pretty much win. Yeah, I sighted in Grafdigger's Cage expecting Abrupt Decay, but that did not happen. I saw no, or not Abrupt Decay on Ancient Grudges. But I saw no Ancient Grudges in my opponent's graveyard, or library, when I did the Surgical Extraction, so... Well, that was in game, what was it? 2? I can't remember. I think this is game 2. Alright. So half the combo out. And all I gotta do is draw a needle or something before my opponent gets Ultimates Liliana. Yeah, I want that bell now, so I go ahead and I grab it. Especially since that'll let me dig deeper with for a needle. Instead, I see an Abrupt Decay. That takes care of Liliana, and that's pretty much game. Because my opponent has no cards in hand and no threats on board. And opponent concedes. Alright. So I keep it. I've got a double needle hand with the Welling Jar. It's an iffy keep because I'm only one land hand and it's a colorless. But, you know, I mean, I thought about it and I was like, you know what, if I mulligan, then really I just probably lose. Because there's so many cards the Jund player has that are live no matter what I do. So keeping a double needle hand is probably the best way to go and just hope that my deck does this thing. So I'm drawing land now. I just Need color producing land. Go ahead and play that Pithing Needle on Liliana right now. So now I've drawn 2 lands in a row pretty much, thanks to that opal. And I figure my opponent could make me discard that bridge, but because I have ruins, I should be okay. Yeah, opponent does have Scavenging Ooze, but doesn't have the green mana necessary to use it. And sure enough, opponent makes me discard bridge. So I go ahead and Needle Ooze now. Well, Lantern first, and then to get more information before I Needle. If, you know, in case there's something more threatening, I have to Needle. But yep, go ahead and Needle the Ooze. Grab that bell so I can start controlling draws. So my opponent tries to get me with that Kolaghan's Command. I sack the Welding Jar to save the needle, and I go ahead and Noxious Revival the bridge now. So that was basically, I mean, sure, my Kolaghan's Command was definitely a 2-for-1 there, but not the 2 my opponent wanted. So now it's not too hard to win from here. I mean, yeah, I am worried about bolts, but I had a tough choice here about the surgical extraction. I wasn't sure if I should extract the bolts with the commands, and I figured commands was probably a better idea. Oh yeah, and I was trying to figure out what's more likely. My opponent will draw some way to kill me or something to destroy artifacts. And destroying artifacts is more important for my opponent to kill me. So I grab the Welding Jar back and play it first before I draw into that surgical. So I also looked through my opponent's deck to see what outs they had. Not a whole lot. Yeah, I like this because now my opponent's going to lose 4 life to draw a dead card. I wasn't happy with that stack, so I go ahead and just grab the wastes. Come on in, Geo. Oh, it's doing it. There's a dead Liliana on top. So at this point I figure I'll just kill my opponent with his own Dark Confidence. Really, my opponent should have used Liliana to kill Dark Confidant. Even if my opponent saw that, they still would have lost. Because there were just so many dead cards in the opponent's library now. So I know my opponent wants to terminate their own Dark Confidants, and I figure, well, I mean, my opponent missed the Olivia Voldaren thing too, but and then so did I. So what I figured is I would redirect those terminates to my Spellskite, so my opponent dies to their own Dark Confidant. But in my opponent's defense, Dark Confidant was the only out my opponent had. Yep, tries to terminate. I say no, targets my Spellskite instead. And now my opponent's going to die to drawing a Liliana. Alright, oh yeah, and here my opponent couldn't kill their own because it cost the red and they didn't have it. Maybe if they tapped their mana better, they would have been able to, but that's a rough spot to be in. And one of my roughest matchups, and it played out well for me, fortunately. Alright, thanks for watching.